Static Shock is back. With the long, ongoing rumors of a live-action Static Shock movie being produced by Michael B. Jordan, I figured it would be a good time to catch up on everyone's favorite manipulator of electromagnetic energy. And lucky for us, his story was just rebooted in the last few years with a fresh, new origin and universe to go with it. So let's dive right into Static Shock Season 1. Our story begins with a young Virgil talking about how strong and kind his father is, but he feels like he is the opposite. He feels weak because he's picked on often and wonders how he'll ever get a girl to like him. So when a beautiful girl from school, named Frida, invites him to a protest after school, he accepts. Virgil arrives at what starts as a peaceful Black Lives Matter protest until his bullies from school spot him and begin to pick on him. After calling Virgil an Oreo, Frida says something to Francis, and he calls her a slut, prompting Virgil to punch him and causing a fight to break out. This makes the people around him come to his aid, and a riot breaks out, causing the police to arrive and shoot tear gas into the crowd. Except, this was a new, experimental tear gas that caused many people to be unalived. Or so they thought. Many of the teens and others woke up with new powers as what they call Bang Babies, named after the incident that created them, which the media is calling the Big Bang. Virgil wakes up to his sister telling his parents why he was at the protest, and his dad telling him that he's going to start training in martial arts again so that he may face his bullies, but Virgil was facing other problems. His new electromagnetic powers kept manifesting themselves in unpredictable ways, like when he was using the toilet, so he had to learn to control them quickly. After a couple days off, he decides to go back to school, with the anger of the protest and his bullies still festering on his mind. Once he makes it to school, he instantly sees his bully, Francis Stone, harassing a female student with his freshly acquired flame powers, so Virgil steps in. The newly self-named Hot Streak tries to shoot his flames at Virgil, but Virgil evades them with ease and then begins to fry Francis in front of the whole school while saying, "You gave yourself a nickname? Weak." While struggling with the anger of the feelings that come with his new powers, Virgil has to actively make the decision to not unalive Francis, despite the protest of other students. Afterwards, a security officer runs over to check on the situation, but Francis claims he just slipped to keep from admitting that Virgil defeated him, and the officer lets them go. Since Static almost fried Francis in front of the entire school, he's been dealing with this buzzing inside of his head that keeps getting louder. The fact that he blew up and almost decided to end Francis Stone, and the fact that his entire life has been changed in just a few weeks' time. After a few more days off, he decides to go back to school again and has a small argument with his sister on the way out, letting us know that Virgil's more irritable than usual. Then, we see a clip of another student's podcast called Darius on the Real, where he explains that the gas was rumored to be an untested, experimental gas created by Alva Industries, and that it had unalived many of the kids at the protest. He also explains a good portion of the ones who did survive were mutated so bad that they can't even hide their powers, making them a target with nowhere to go. Back to Virgil, who makes it to school with the buzzing becoming so loud that he could feel himself twitching. He was expecting to receive backlash for what had happened, but to his surprise, the star athlete, Derek, took credit for taking down Francis, and since he shut down the cameras beforehand, there's no proof otherwise. He runs into his best friends, who explain how worried they've been, but Virgil tells him that he's been fine, to not worry, and that he'll see them for the new Shadow Dragon campaign that weekend, in an attempt to save his friend's feelings. Later that night, Static's family is having dinner, and he can feel the buzzing getting louder in his head as his family is trying to figure out how they can help him. Then, Francis shows up at Static's house while his family's still eating dinner, telling him that he wants to settle the score. He tries to talk Francis down to keep his family safe, but Francis would prefer hands. So Static begins to fight back and realizes Francis keeps heating up, but his flames are getting shorter, so he's probably exhausting himself, and Static comes up with a plan. He creates an electrical field to snuff out the oxygen he needs for his fire. This works, but as he's contained, Static's sister comes over to check on him and Francis is freed. This gives him enough time to throw flames at their house and set it ablaze to enact his revenge. Virgil stares for what feels like an eternity at his family's burning home. Hot Streak begins to taunt him, "You don't want no smoke." But as he's charging up his flames, he runs out of gas. And as much as he wants to run the fade with him, Virgil decides to save his house, and Francis gets away. He uses the same trick he used on Hot Streak on his house, on a larger scale, and puts the flames out, but he runs out of juice himself. It's determined that the flames weren't that strong and the house is fine, but Virgil's parents begin to argue about what to do about his powers and whether or not it's safe to seek medical help for him. He tries to go back to school, but his old friend turned podcaster Darius tries to interview him about what really happened in the school with Francis, and Virgil gets angry after being pestered and fries his phone. He then leaves the school to skate and clear his head before he decides to call his old mentor, Mr. Metcalf, who's involved in some seemingly shady stuff, but he answers Virgil and gives him the number and location to one of his safe houses with materials he may be able to use. Meanwhile, Derek goes to see the metahumans he was interviewing before, only to learn one was taken in a raid by the army at Holocaust Rally, who seemed to have been led by Francis, who gained immunity by agreeing to give up names and help with gathering up bang babies. Then, Virgil finds a safe house with some superhero materials, but the police arrive, thinking he's Mr. Metcalf. Virgil sends a robot he found in the lab out to distract the police, and they instantly open fire. He jumps out thinking he can make it, but they open fire at him, and as the bullets close in, he closes his eyes to feel nothing. Upon opening them, he sees that he stopped the bullets. Static then realizes he can use his powers to move metal and launches the police guns into infinity, and then begins to run away. The police are hot on his trail though, and begin to surround him over top a manhole, when he acquires his iconic method of transportation and flies off. After sneaking back into his house, Virgil decides to look through the bag he took from the lab, which contains some kinetic metal among other things. Then, he realizes the suit he stole is made up of a special material and decides to rework it. Thus, Static Shock's new superhero costume is born. Before moving on, I'd like to say that this isn't the final costume, so don't worry, he will be dripped out by the end of this video. Also, if you've made it this far, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'm still a very small channel and everyone is appreciated here. Thanks for the continued support, and back to the video. After making his new costume and getting caught trying it on by his sister, Virgil takes some time to help his dad with the roof of the house. They have a heart-to-heart where his dad explains that they're more alike than Virgil thinks, so he shouldn't worry about being more like his father. And then, Virgil's friends, Richie and Frida, come by to offer their helping hands. So they go inside to help with the paint, and they also have a heart-to-heart, and it makes Virgil realize how much he needed his friend's reassurance. The next day, Virgil decides to go back to school again, and while walking down a hallway, he's pulled into the closet by Darius, who warns him that there's feds at the school looking for bang babies. While peeking from the closet, they see agents taking 2 students along with Hotstreak's help. Hotstreak then comments that they're missing 2 students from the school, but it's okay because he knows they're addies. The feds and Hotstreak try to visit Virgil at his house, but his parents answer the door, and Mr. and Mrs. Hawkins hold it down for their son. When the Fed introduces himself as a special agent, Virgil's mom is instantly at his throat, asking what agency he's from and for his credentials. The agent shows his badge, showing that he's from a new agency called ATF, and tries to reassure Virgil's parents by saying that they merely want to assess people affected by the gas at the protest. This is when the neighbors show up outside and start dogging on the agents as well. They even point out that Hotstreak just tried to burn down the Hawkins house a few days ago, and Virgil's mom declines the agent's request. He tries to give her his card, but she rips it up and his parents close the door with the neighbors still talking shit at the agents outside, letting them know that if Virgil disappears, that they've got the agents on video. Virgil's parents then sit them down to inform them that they'll do anything in their power to protect them, and even suggest that he stays with his auntie for a while, but Virgil declines, saying he's not running away when there's kids being rounded up by agents from school. His parents tell him that it's too dangerous to do anything at this time, and that they'll shelf the conversation for the moment. Then, the buzzing comes back and Virgil decides that he has to do something. He goes back to his room and breaks out the bag of toys that he got from Metcalf's lab and tests out the new kinetic metal. He realizes that he can basically make it react to his thoughts and that it's solid as steel when it takes form. He tries out a few combinations, creating armor, lifting objects with it, and this metal even becomes his new saucer he uses to fly. He then decides to call Darius while gearing up, who tells him that one of the girls they took had already come to him for help, and that the agents didn't realize she had a smartwatch, so that he had her location on GPS. But Virgil is interrupted by Sharon. He tries to act like he's not sneaking out to save people, but she isn't there to stop him. Instead, she tells him about a bang baby she had in the ambulance that day, and how it seemed like her powers affect their bodies like hypoglycemia, meaning that it burns out their body's actual energy or blood sugar levels, before some agents pulled over the ambulance and took the bang baby away. She then gives Static a new jacket with about 20 glucose tablets in the pockets and a panic button just in case he needs help, and tells him that she'll show up with 3 medical rigs and a cover story on the radio so the agents won't hear about it on the police scanners. So not only has she completed his superhero outfit, but she also established the new Bang Baby power system and the reason that Hotstreak ran out of flames before. Virgil shows up to an abandoned steel factory to meet Darius, who was already waiting. Richie and Frida also show up in full gear to help. Virgil tries to tell them to wait outside for when he frees the Bang Babies, but they refuse. They also kind of establish the nickname for Static here before he carries them all over the fences of the factory with pieces of scrap metal, and they begin to execute a plan. First, Static uses his powers to cut the lines providing power to the facility, but this alerts the already prepared guards who take aim at him. He makes short work of them before getting blasted by a flame from the darkness within. As Static's getting up, Hotstreak reveals himself, talking shit as always. Static then tells his friends to carry out the plan, and Hotstreak allows them to run away, saying he's ready to run the fade back with Static now. They face off, and Static says he's getting tired of this, and Hotstreak says he'll never get tired of kicking his ass. Even though so far on the first 3 issues, despite burning Virgil's house some, they're 2-0 in Static's favor, so not sure where the delusion is coming from in this man. Anyway, they both agree to this last fade as they dash towards each other. Static dodges, throws some quips, and kicks Hotstreak in the face with his saucer before saying, "We're done here," and tries to electrocute him. But Hotstreak ups his output and overpowers Static electricity, then gives Static an actual mouthful of fire. He stands over his opponent like the top-level hater he is, just talking shit.
I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress.
While laying there, Static starts to feel like he's losing life and remembers the glucose tablets his sister gave him. He takes one and his body instantly lights up, even kicking his natural healing into overdrive. He then realizes he can win this, he just has to take a few more tablets. Meanwhile, inside the factory, the rest of the team decide to split up and execute the plan more quickly. And Darius tells them that if anyone runs into trouble to call his phone, because it will instantly start live streaming their location to his popular channel. Back to Static and Hotstreak, running their fade. It's at this point Static realizes that Hotstreak would have no problem killing him, so he needs to incapacitate him quickly. So he dashes inside and Hotstreak follows. Static pops 3 more tablets and uses the electricity running the factory's backup generator to control all the wires in the room and wraps up Francis with him. He then calls Darius, who explains that the team split up and he just found something, so Static leaves Francis to regroup. We then see that Darius has found the Bang Babies, including his friend Daisy, who explains that they can't use their powers because of an inhibitor in their neck. Frida and Richie are also shown, and they found what appears to be an old lab, but it's destroyed, making them realize that they may also have to fear some of the Bang Babies here as well. Special Agent Jones is shown looking at the camera Static disabled, before one of his workers comes to warn him that they have bigger issues, and that something is tearing through their labs, so he calls for an evacuation and says something about testing their new investment. Static finally meets up with Darius, who explains that he can't hack the cells holding the Bang Babies, and Static decides to try to fry their systems. This works, and he talks to Daisy, who shows them the device in her neck. Static then feels it and decides that he should be able to remove it if he's careful enough, and he does so. Darius then warns them that after all the devices are removed that they should stay calm, because anger will not help in this situation. This pisses Static off, who calls him out, saying that he doesn't know what it's like, to which Darius responds beautifully, reminding him that as a black gay man, Anger has never done anything but get his people killed or hurt, and that if anything, not being a Bang Baby in this situation makes it more dangerous for him, so they all need to stay level-headed to survive. This at least stops the argument for now, and Daisy says that they need to leave, but Static reminds them that the agency still has data on all of them. The other 2 members of the team call saying that they may have found the server room, so Static decides it's time to remove the devices, and then asks Darius to take the Bang Babies out while he helps with the servers. Darius agrees and then tells him that he'll double back and start a stream just in case things go south, but they're interrupted by one of the Bang Babies who had different plans. She explains that Special Agent Jones had promised some of the people here a lot of money, and they're not about to mess that up. Meanwhile, Richie and Frida made it to the server room, but they are having a hard time cracking it when they hear guards saying that they're going to Darius's location, so they leave. Back to Static, who is trying to talk down the group of Bang Babies, but it doesn't work and they attack him. He tries to tell Darius to get out of there with the rest of the Bang Babies, but he gets struck while he's distracted. One of them reluctantly tries to blast Virgil, but he dodges it and it almost hits Darius. Luckily, Daisy uses her powers to redirect the beam. Static then realizes that the Bang Baby that just shot at him is Derek Barnett, a young figurehead in the community, and he tries to reason with him. Derek tells Static that his grandma needs the money, and their conversation is cut short by the rest of the group going after Darius, so he then zaps them, only to get almost sliced up by another Bang Baby's energy blades. He then realizes that the energy in the blades is similar to his and decides he could cut his powers. He just needs something to conduct his own through. Then, Frida and Richie show up, and she throws Static a metal baseball bat, the perfect weapon to conduct his powers through, so he uses it to disable the other Bang Baby. After once again having to make the decision to not end his opponent, Static offers his hand and tells him that he doesn't want to actually see anyone hurt, and gives a speech about how Alva is lying and how they should be working together. A beautiful hero speech, really, until it's cut short by the G-Man himself, Special Agent Jones, over the facility's PA systems. Agents surround them, and after some back and forth banter to stall Jones, Richie tells Static where the servers are, and Static decides he needs to fry them quickly and get everyone the hell out of there. So he downs the rest of the glucose tablet and charges up to the maximum. He then outputs so much electricity that he can feel his way to the level below them and pinpoint the servers. He completely melts them, but with careful control to avoid hurting his friends. This causes the whole block to black out, leaving everyone in the dark, still surrounded by soldiers, so Static lights up his finger and gives his enemies two choices. Fast forward a few days to the Hawkins residence where Virgil is talking to his family about how all the Bang Babies are joining together to protect one another. This makes his dad hug him and tells him that he's proud of him, but it also makes him tell him that he's going to start training again for sure. Virgil is then running through his superhero checklist before he goes out, and Sharon stops him to give him a new version of his outfit she updated for him. Next, we see the news begin to broadcast a message about how the Bang Babies attacked the facility, until the broadcast is interrupted by Static in his fly new outfit. Static begins to relay the message that the news is lying, and that the Bang Babies are angry, but it's not undirected anger. We see Special Agent Jones, who is also watching the broadcast. As he's talking shit to the screen, he hears someone call him G-Man from the shadows. He tries to call out, but shadow tendrils begin to engulf him, while the strange shadow user is asking him where his brother is. A few days later, we see the Hawkins and Virgil's friends are having dinner together, and we learn that Darius has a whole system set up to help locate Bang Babies. While eating, Virgil's phone goes off and it's Darius saying there's a shift in police where he's at and is causing concern. So Sharon reminds Virgil that her meat sauce tastes just as good after it's been microwaved, and with nothing more than a bet, Virgil gears up as Static and takes off. Well, that's the end of Static Shock Season 1. What did you think of the new origin, power system, and the suit that he finally got at the end of Season 1? Also, I want to thank you guys for all the engagement on the first video of this series, and my last video for that matter. It means a lot to me because I've been trying so hard to grow this channel for a long time now, so that I can put more time into making content for you guys. That being said, let me know the answer to those previous questions in the comments, and let me know if you'd like me to continue the Static series, or any other ideas you may have. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, I've been the Popular Introvert.